fallen in a rabbit hole of jangle pop awesomeness, and I don't want to get out. Hey you guys, it's Hannah. Welcome to Jangle Pop Part 2. If you missed Part 1, there's going to be a link above my head somewhere where you can go back and check out that video. Definitely stop here and go back to that video because I do go over a history and background of the genre. Do catch up. So for this video, I'm focusing on a lot more bands that have that jangle pop sound that we just adore. As you can see, Beetlejuice is back there supervising my every move, as per usual.
And the ghost with the most, babe.
I have a lot to show for this video, you guys. Wonder how long it's gonna be. I'm gonna try to include song clips for you guys. It really takes a long time to put those in the video, but you guys seem to like hearing the band rather than me just flapping my jaws and trying to explain what they sound like. So I will insert sound clips for your listening pleasure. First, I'm gonna bring up the DBs again because I just have to, and I featured them in my Power Pop video. This is gonna be quick. They're really important to the jangle pop movement. Chris Samey worked with Alex Chilton from Big Star. These are two important albums, and if you can ever find this, it's like a 2-in-1 compilation of the two albums that I just showed. I failed to mention them in my first video, but yes, do check out the DBs. Let's move on to the Feelies. The Feelies formed in 1977 in Hoboken, New Jersey. Am I saying that right? I don't know. I have trouble pronouncing some city names, so please forgive me if I have a total fail moment. We're just gonna move on from that embarrassment. This is post-punk, new wave. I'm bringing this up because some of their later albums are more jangly. I just do not have them to show you guys. But this is a pretty cool album. It's called Crazy Rhythms. I just have this digipack version right here. This is a very avant-garde album. REM were very influenced by these guys. It has energy, it's quirky, it's repetitive. All members contribute percussion. When I first heard this, it reminded me of the bongos, which I mentioned in my first Power Pop video. The bongos were great, and it turns out the bongos were also from Hoboken, New Jersey. So check these out. Numbers with Wings, Beat Hotel, but this one, most importantly, Drums Along the Hudson, Love Richard Barone. So again, I've already mentioned the DBs and the bongos, but had to bring them up once again for jangle pop. There must be something in the water in New Jersey because they churned out these fine bands. But yeah, this is a pretty unique album. You hear something different each time you listen to it. Even though it is repetitive, there's a lot going on. So the Feelies, also check out their other later albums, but this is the only one I have to show for this video. Dump Truck are the next band. Dump Truck formed in Boston in 1983, and I've got two of their albums to show. This one, Positively Dump Truck, which is very good and jangly, and then this one, which has a more southern sound. This is For the Country. I love the song 50 Miles on here, Going Nowhere. This is excellent. Let me just grab this next stack of vinyl and CDs. Like I said, I have a lot to show, so brace yourselves. Okay. All right. Blake Babies are the next band. Of course, I love any opportunity I get to talk about Juliana Hatfield or the Blake Babies because Juliana Hatfield is my favorite female artist of all time. I've followed her since I was in high school in the 90s, so I really appreciate her creativity, her artistry, her voice. She's contributed a lot to alternative rock. So the Blake Babies were her first band, and they formed in 1986 in Boston, Massachusetts. I'm going to show a few things. If you want a good place to start, go with their compilation, Innocence and Experience. This was recently reissued on American Laundromat Records, which is a fantastic label that they're releasing a lot of Juliana's new releases on this label. So Innocence and Experience, this one just happens to be on this baby blue gorgeous shade of vinyl. Just tons of good songs. John Strom of the Blake Babies, he's actually one of my favorite guitarists. He's very underrated. He's mastered that jangle sound, let me tell you that. So after a few albums with the Blake Babies, let me show you what else is really good. You got Earwig. There's a song on here called From Here to Burma that I will probably try to include right after I show these. Even a little bit better than Earwig, you have Sunburn. Then the Blake Babies reunited for like a reunion album in 2001, as well as a tour. This is my second copy actually. So this reunion album, God Bless the Blake Babies from 2001. Superb, stunning. Next band I want to bring up is Translator. Translator formed in 1979 in LA, but they moved to San Francisco. I've got 2 albums of theirs to share. One of them is Extra Jangly. This band has 2 singer, songwriter, guitarists, Steve Barton and Bob Darlington. The first album is definitely new wave and post-punk, but I'll show it anyways because it's a fabulous album. This one's called Heartbeats and Triggers. You can get these pretty cheap if you look. So that's a great new wave-ish record. And then my favorite jangly record from them is this one. It's just self-titled. It's pretty easy to find this one if you ever stumble across it. So just remember the flowers. And then there's the band in the back. This is a solid favorite jangle pop record of mine. And a friend of mine, Dave, who's a Facebook friend, he actually mentioned this band and recommended this band to me about a year or 2 ago, along with the Barracudas. So thank you, Dave.
Shadows in your eyes again, as you walk along alone.
Out of Boston that formed in 1982, and they started as an all-girl group, and that is Salem 66. I've showed this before in my South Dakota road trip video because I found it up there. This is a ripping spin. The second one I recently picked up on my Portland trip. This one is still in my queue to be listened to. I get kind of behind sometimes, you guys, but this is the second album I own from them, Frequency and Urgency. So, and I've listened to this one plenty. So I'm looking forward to listening to the other one. A Ripping Spin. They do an excellent cover of Wire's Fragile on here. So do check them out. The Hoodoo Gurus from Sydney, Australia. Formed in 1981. This is the only one I have so far of them. Actually, I'm waiting for a CD of theirs. I will let you know when I get that, and I will show it in a finds video. I found it for pretty cheap, but Mars Needs Guitars, which is probably their most well-known, highly rated album. I like this band because they're pretty campy and goofy. They don't take themselves too seriously. Now, I could have included them in my power pop video because they're also very power pop, but I'm including them here. They're just pure fun. They mix many styles in their music: cowpunk, garage, power pop, jangle pop. You need to hear these guys if you are not familiar. We're moving on to Orange Juice. This is the only album I have of theirs. This is their debut album. Orange Juice formed in 1979 in Glasgow, Scotland, and I actually found this at a record show for $2. So yeah, this album is called You Can't Hide Your Love Forever. The title came from a Jonathan Richman and the Modern Lovers song titled Hi Dear. I love the optimistic feel to this album. It's very cheery. It'll probably get you in a good mood. Edwyn Collins and James Kirk wrote the songs and played guitar. Edwyn Collins is the lead singer of this group. You may remember his hit from the 90s, A Girl Like You, which was featured on the Empire Records soundtrack. Great song, but he first started in Orange Juice. The guitars on this album are excellent. Some people find Edwyn Collins' voice unbearable. It took me a little bit to warm up to it, but just keep listening. He might grow on you. I detect some funk and post-punk on this album as well. Some horns are incorporated here and there on this record, so if that's something that turns you off with some 80s albums, I'm just warning you now that there are some on here. There's also, I'm gonna mention another band really quick here. I'm gonna mention the Teardrop Explodes, which they also feature some horns on their music, and I could have featured them in this Jangle Pop video too, but I'm not going to go in depth about them. But just know that I do love the Teardrop Explodes as well, and Julian Cope. So Orange Juice, check them out.
There is a place which no one has seen, where it's still possible to dream.
Here's a band that I love. This is the Reavers. Now, they're an Austin, Texas band. They actually started as Zeitgeist. That's the name of their band at first. This is their album Translate Slowly. So there was another band that had the same name and they had to change it due to legal reasons. But do start with this album. I was amazed to find this at a record show last year in Omaha. Because I also have a CD of this, but it's probably VG minus. There's a skip in it. So the vocals on this are amazing. You have male, female vocals. What are their names? John Crosland and Kim Longacre. They both play guitar and they sing, and they just sound phenomenal. They do a cover of Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain by Willie Nelson. Excellent, excellent album right here. Translate Slowly. And then do check out, this is the other one I have from them. It's called The End of the Day. So I do want to pick up some more. They're pretty easy to find, some of their stuff. Now, Translate Slowly might be a little harder for you to find, but I found some of their other albums for pretty cheap, but they were a solid Jangle Pop band for sure. All right, moving on to Dreams So Real. This is the only album I have from them. This band formed in Athens, Georgia in the early 80s. Lots of great bands came from Athens, right? Peter Buck produced their debut single called Everywhere Girl, and he also produced their first album, so I don't have either one of those. This is their second album, and they have 3 albums total. They have catchy songs, they've got a polished sound. Let me read a little bit from this little hype sticker promo deal. Their influences. Their music combines British invasion styles, touches of psychedelia, along with classic 70s guitar rock that has a postmodern energy to it. So, really good band. I'm going to include a little song clip right here.
Rough night in Jericho, look for one for it. Guess I'll be saved by... Lay me down in the bulrushes, send me down, down to the sea, float me on.
Let's talk about the Windbreakers next. This is the only album I have. It's called Run. The Windbreakers formed in 1981 in Mississippi. Tim Lee and Bobby Sutlett were the leaders of this group. Remember I mentioned Mitch Easter before and how he's a pretty integral part of Jangle Pop as being a producer. And also he was in the band Let's Active, which I mentioned in my first installment. Anyway, he produced this album as well as played on it. This is a forgotten band of the time. Bands like REM and DBs were getting a lot of attention, and the Windbreakers are one of the more forgotten bands, sadly. Let's talk about Spinning Coin. This is a fairly new band. It's a 4-piece band. They formed in 2014 in Glasgow, Scotland. Well, half of this band lives in Scotland. The other half lives in Berlin, Germany, actually. I think there was a visa issue. Anyway, I mentioned Orange Juice a little bit ago. Jack Mellon and Sean Armstrong of this band were definitely influenced by Edwyn Collins. So I don't know what to think of this album. This is actually a new release from 2020. I really like side 2 of this album. Side 1 is taking a little bit longer to grow on me, and this is called Hyacinth by Spinning Coin, by the way. Sorry, I didn't mention that. It's a pretty unique album. It has jangly elements, but it's indie pop. Like I said, side 1 is kind of a difficult listen for me, but I'm going to give it some more spins, and hopefully it will indeed grow on me. So Spinning Coin.
Nothing else.
Scouts Coastal Fever. Awesome band. They formed in 2013 in Melbourne, Australia. There are 3 singer/guitarists. They're on Sub Pop. And I've got 2 things to show. So I have an EP of theirs called The French Press, which is outstanding. This came out in 2016, so gotta have that. And then their album Hope Downs. This one came out in 2018. So Hope Downs. This band has been compared to the Go-Betweens. I think I agree with that comparison. This album made many best of 2018 lists. I mean, this album was talked about for a while. It's indie rock, it's jangle pop. Great music here. They have a new album coming out on June 5th called Sideways to New Italy, if you want to be on the lookout for that. Here are some song clips. Can Sinatras, formed in 1986 in Irvine, Scotland. Thanks to my friend Jess, by the way, for getting me these 2 CDs and introducing me to them. So yeah, I've got Cake, which is their first one, and Weightlifting. Their song Obscurity Knocks was a pretty big single for them. They're often compared to the Smiths, but you'll have to, as with anything, you'll have to form your own opinion. I want to mention a band called Blue Rodeo next, which are from Canada. I've got 3 of their CDs. This is a favorite of mine. This is 5 Days in July. The thing about Blue Rodeo, a few of you actually mentioned them, and they're kind of more of a roots rock sound, but they definitely have some jangle in their music. Nowhere to Hear is another one by them, and then Casino is another favorite. Blue Rodeo, I'm going to try to pick a few songs that can show their jangle pop prowess for your listening pleasure. Next we have the Dentists. This is a pretty obscure band, a pretty obscure record. They formed in 1984 in Kent, England. So this one's called Some People Are on the Pitch, They Think It's All Over, It Is Now, which is a very long title. But this is a reissue, and even this is hard to find now. It's a 2013 reissue. Some claim or argue the Dentists to be the first Britpop band. That's just something I read. Here's a band where all members participated in the songwriting. It's garage rock, jangly post-punk. They've toured with the Go-Betweens and Delamitri, which I will mention in a little bit. But this is a fantastic album. If you guys ever come across this, here's what they sound like. Grapes of Wrath. They formed in 1983 in British Columbia. This one's called Treehouse. This is a very folky, jangly record. I like the production on this album. And you should be able to find this for pretty cheap if you ever stumble upon them. Great harmonies on here as well. Grapes of Wrath. Next, I want to talk about Game Theory. Game Theory formed in 1982 in California. Scott Miller is the leader of this band. They're power pop, jangle pop, lots of good influences in their music. The lineup of this band frequently changed, but Scott Miller was always there. There's a lot of pop culture references in their music. I don't have their album titled Real Nighttime, but that's an album where they brought in Mitch Easter for production. There's Mitch Easter again. Michael Quercio, I don't know how you say his last name, but he was in the 3 O'Clock. Quercio. He joined the band in 1989. So I had to mention them because I feel like they're a bit overlooked. I've got 2 of their albums. This one's Big Shot Chronicles, which is the favorite of the 2 that I own. Right here. And then I have Lolita Nation, which is an Omnivore reissue on green vinyl. It's a double LP, not a gatefold, which I don't like when it's not. It's on translucent green vinyl right there. Scott Miller's voice can take some getting used to. And what's funny is that on the credits on the back for the band members, it says, under Scott Miller, it says guitar and miserable whine. Sometimes his voice is whiny, and sometimes I feel like I can't handle it. But I love game theory. At times his voice actually reminds me of Chris Stamey from the DBs. I don't know if you guys get that from his voice too. So I don't hate his voice, it's just sometimes I have to take a little bit of a break. Scott Miller formed a band called the Loud Family in 1991. I think they did a couple of albums. I've been meaning to get their stuff on CD. I think I will seek some of those albums out. Scott Miller committed suicide in 2013, unfortunately. And I guess a lot of people did not see that coming from him. So another power pop, jangle pop great gone too soon. Oh man, I forgot to grab my eyelids CDs. 1 second. Okay, I'm not always super organized for these videos, but doing my best. So in my first jangle pop video, I mentioned the eyelids and how I had ordered 3 of their CDs. Well, those did arrive, and I got their first EP produced by Peter Buck right here. And then I also ordered an album called Or, and I haven't listened to these other 2 yet, but I'm going to try to include 1 or 2 songs here. Let me just read this little quick snippet here on this hype sticker. It says, inspired ringing guitar pop in the ballpark of XTC, Straitjacket Fits, Teenage Fan Club, and Shoes. Consummate melodies and high hooky tunes, it's first play sold. And that's from Jack Rabbit at Big Takeover magazine. So, got that one. And then this one called The Accident Falls. I'm really excited to have these in my collection right now. Excellent band from Portland. Do check them out. Do check them out. Moving on to The Lucy Show. This is a band that formed in 1983 in London. They've been compared to REM and The Cure. This is their second album. They only had 2 albums. This album is actually produced by John Leckie, and John Leckie has produced albums from Radiohead, Stone Roses, XTC, many others. They have a pretty atmospheric sound as well, so in a way they kind of remind me of The Church. I love this album right here. Lucy Show, Mania. Lloyd Cole and the Commotions. This is a perfect, flawless debut. Perfect jangle pop record. This is Rattlesnakes. I found this for a pretty decent price, and it is a promo. I can't say enough good things about this album. They formed in 1982 in Glasgow, Scotland, and this has sold like over 100,000 copies. I also have their third album on vinyl. This is Mainstream, which is definitely more moody than Rattlesnakes. It's still good, but you just have to be in the mood to listen to this one. So those are the 2 I have, as well as a compilation, which I found at Goodwill. Pretty decent compilation here. Covers their material from 1984 to 1989. So Lloyd Cole and the Commotions were definitely an important jangle pop band. I just love them.
Academia Blues.
Next one I want to talk about is a band called Mystic Braves. Mystic Braves formed in 2011 in LA. This is their third album, and it's called Days of Yesteryear. Now I bought this probably 2 years ago. This is definitely a 60s time warp album. Lots of Birds influences. They use a lot of organ, lots of chiming, jangly guitars. It's really good. I know a few other people in the VC have talked about Mystic Braves. I think Vinyl Richie mentioned them. Lisa, L.E. that's her YouTube handle. So this is a band worth checking out for sure. Huxton Creepers. They formed in 1984 in Melbourne, Australia. I found this at a thrift store for like 50 cents. This is their debut album, 12 Days to Paris. Some excellent guitar work from this band. So yeah, I kind of just gave this a chance. It looked interesting to me at the thrift store, so I picked it up, and I'm so glad I did, because this is a really underrated band that you guys should hear. Cleaners from Venus. Now this is a band I kind of just found out about a couple months ago. They have many albums. Martin Newell is the leader of the group. He's a poet. He's a jack of all trades in the artistic realm. So I wanted to talk about this album right here, which I have, called In the Golden Autumn. Now, their albums have been reissued recently on captured tracks. So this was originally released in 1983. They released most of their music on cassette in the 80s. So this isn't gonna have a very produced sound. In fact, it's pretty rough indeed. But this was a very good listen. It's very upbeat, great melodies. Yeah, Cleaners from Venus, and they have so many albums to check out. So I'm really glad I came across them. House Martins, gotta bring up the House Martins. The House Martins formed in 1984 in Yorkshire, England, a band with catchy melodies and cynical lyrics. They have a lot of political leanings in their songwriting as well. This band has been compared to the Smiths a lot. Paul Heaton of the House Martins went on to form a band called the Beautiful South after the breakup of the House Martins. They reached a pretty decent level of success. Interesting factoid, Norman Cook, who played bass in the House Martins, later went on to become Fatboy Slim. So I've got this one, and then I have kind of a CD compilation called Now That's What I Call Quite Good, and it's very extensive. So I'm glad to have these in my collection. You're still here. Thank you. I put a lot of research into this video because certainly I didn't know all these facts and tidbits about these bands, but this is fun for me. Hopefully it's fun for you. We're learning together. And if you want to leave some other recommendations for jangle pop bands down below in the comments, if you just want to leave me a comment, period, that would let me know that I'm doing a good job with my videos. So I would love to hear from you. Anyway, we're moving on to Aztec Camera. Aztec Camera formed in 1980, another band from Glasgow, Scotland. Wow. Roddy Frame was the leader of this group, and he was only 18 when he wrote most of these songs, and that's pretty impressive. What a talent. He's been compared to Elvis Costello. I love the guitar playing on this album. It's upbeat, it's kind of jazzy, it's folky. The other albums from them aren't ranked as highly as Highland, Hard Rain. You need this album in your collection for sure. Aztec Camera. Delamitri. This is their debut album. Delamitri formed in 1980 in, guess where? I haven't heard any of their other material, I will admit that. I've only heard this. I like the review someone wrote about this album. They said if you take Aztec Camera, add some Prefab Sprout, and sprinkle a bit of the Smiths in there, you get Delamitri. So they have 6 studio albums, and I believe they just finished recording a new album like just before the lockdown of the pandemic. So if you're a Delamitri fan, hey, you have new music to look forward to from them in the near future. We're going back to Australia, Sydney in fact, and my friend Dean at Grandma's Handbag, he sent me a lovely package of stuff, I believe it was last month or the month before, and it was just chock full of power pop, shoegaze, jangle pop. It was good. So Dean, thank you for introducing me to the Hummingbirds. This is their debut album called Love Buzz. Now, the Hummingbirds formed in 1986. The members of this band were previously in a group called the Bug-Eyed Monsters. This album was produced by, can you guess? Mitch Easter. Unfortunately, this album didn't sell too well, even though it got rave reviews. The male-female vocals on here are top-notch. It's a beautiful album. I love this album. I'm so glad I know about them now. He also sent me this 7-inch blush, which is also just fantastic. So check that out. And I believe they only have 2 full-length studio albums, unfortunately. Now, Nick Dalton, the second bassist, he actually left the group to be in the Lemonheads. So the Hummingbirds, they had a few reunions, like reunion tours later on, but the singer/guitarist died in 2017. We are almost done, you guys. I want to mention a band called the Twerps. Now, this is not glamorous right here. This is a band I just discovered, and I ordered this on eBay. I had no idea it was going to be a library issued copy. Hopefully the library police don't come after me. So it's either from a library sale or someone is just stealing library items and selling them on eBay. Anyway, back to Twerps. They formed in 2008, another Australian band. They are definitely influenced by the Clean and the Go-Betweens. They got the chiming guitars. Check them out. I cannot end this video without talking about some key 80s, 90s jangle pop groups that I know you've heard of. So the first one being the Replacements. Let It Be has some very key, important jangle tracks, especially I Will Dare. I mean, it starts off jangly. So this one's excellent. I've got Tim on vinyl. Love Tim. And then I've got 2 CDs. So these definitely have some power pop, jangle pop gems. Pleased to Meet Me. And then I've got Don't Tell a Soul. I've been working on my Replacements collection in the last year. It's coming along very nicely, if I may say so. Lastly, I want to mention some 90s bands that definitely had that jangle pop sound. I can't end this video without mentioning Gin Blossoms, and this is their highly rated, highly well-known record, New Miserable Experience. So many jangly hits on here. Hey Jealousy, Mrs. Rita, Until I Fall Away, Found Out About You, Allison Road, Pieces of the Night. This is a fantastic jangle pop alternative record. And then I wanted to mention Soul Asylum, the Lemonheads, as well as Toad the Wet Sprocket. Toad the Wet Sprocket are one of my favorite bands of all time. Here's an early album of theirs called Bread and Circus. I've got Pale. This is a really good compilation called PS. And where did I put their other ones? Sorry, you guys. Here we go. Now, I can't find one of my most favorite records of theirs called Dulcinea. I have that on CD somewhere. It's hiding from me. But I also have Fear and this live one called Welcome Home. So, Toad the Wet Sprocket. I'm going to end on this note with Guadalcanal Diary. This cover is terrible. This is the worst shaped cover I own, with the writing as well as this messed up crap. This is their first album called Walking in the Shadow of the Big Man. Very REM-esque. They really knew how to do jangle pop well. So I've got this first album. They have many other 80s albums that are also equally as excellent. And then I have Flip Flop on CD, which was in my car recently for a couple weeks. So love Guadalcanal Diary. Okay, I do believe I'm going to stop here because there's a lot to talk about with jangle pop, and I'm trying to condense it the best I can. I think I'm going to do part 3. So in part 3, I'm going to cover the Paisley underground scene. So that video probably won't be as long as this one, but it's definitely necessary to mention the Paisley underground movement. So I might also feature a few other bands that I just didn't get to in this video. So stay tuned for part 3 of this 3-part series. I had a lot of fun preparing these jangle pop videos. It is a genre that is very dear to my heart. I have deep love for jangle pop. So thank you guys for watching. Leave me a comment below. Give me a thumbs up. Let me know what bands you like that I featured here, or any bands that I need to check out that are in the jangle pop universe. Thanks so much. I'll see you next time. Take care now.